Hello 7th graders, welcome back to Mr. Kendrick's Online Math. Today we are going to be doing lesson 1.2, adding integers. Okay, go ahead and turn to a new page in your math notebook. If you don't have your math notebook right now, please pause the video and get it out as quickly as you can. Alright, at the top of the new page, your title is 1.2, adding integers. Our essential question today is the sum of two integers positive, negative, or zero? How can you tell? Okay, and a reminder from yesterday, integers are whole numbers, positive or negative whole numbers. And today's lesson is all about adding integers. So adding means to combine. So we're going to be combining numbers. All right, go ahead and pause right now. Make sure you have this information written in your math notebook. And here we go. So first we're going to look at adding integers with the same sign. Okay, and the sign is referring to the addition or subtraction or positive or negative sign. Okay, so when we look at the first example here, find 4 plus 3. Okay, we've all done that. 4 plus 3 will give us 7. Alright, now looking at the next one here. Actually, let me go back real quick. I need to explain how I'm going to go through this. Alright, so the process that I'm going to take right now to find the answers is a little bit slower than normal, but I want to make sure I show you the process so it makes sense to you. Okay, so if we are adding integers or combining integers with the same sign, we're putting them together. So we're going to put 4 with 3. Okay, now something that I want to point out to you in the sign that I'm going to use throughout the video is positive or negative signs for the numbers. Okay, so for example, in this first example, 4 plus 3, we have 4 positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we are going to combine them with 3 positive. Okay, so if we put all of these positives together, we get a positive 7. Alright, now looking at the next example, find negative 4 plus negative 3. Now that might look a little confusing, but if we look at it this way, we have 4 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have 3 negatives, 1, 2, 3. How many negatives do we have altogether? We have 7 negatives. So the answer is negative 7. Okay, so negative 4 plus negative 3 is negative 7. We can also look at a number line. Let's put 0 here. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 7. Okay, so let's say we start at negative 4. So negative 4 is right here. Negative 4. And we are going to add 3 negatives to that negative 4. So if we're working with negatives, we're always moving to the left. So if we're adding 3 negatives, we're going to go 1, 2, 3 to the left, and that will give us negative 7. Okay, so negative 4 plus negative 3 is equal to negative 7. Go ahead and pause right now. Make sure you have these two examples written in your notebook. So these are adding integers with the same sign. Let's look at adding integers with different signs. We have negative 3 plus 2. Okay, so if we go use the same process that we used on the last slide, we can use negative and positive and combine them. Okay, so let's think of this as a different example. Let's think of these as soldiers. Okay, so we have 3 negative soldiers. 1, negative, 3 negative soldiers, and we have 2 positive soldiers here. And if we combine them, if they battle each other, they get canceled, canceled, and we're left with -1. Let's look at another example. Let's do 2 plus -1. Okay, so the same process. We have two positives, and we are going to combine them with one negative. Okay, so a positive and a negative, those cancel out, and we're left with one positive. The answer is 1. So 2 plus -1 will give us 1. Okay, you can go ahead and pause here. Make sure you get these examples in your notebook. Okay, some words, some definitions. All right, so adding integers with different signs. That is what the example we just saw. So we're going to subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value, then use the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. Okay, remember yesterday we talked about absolute value being the distance a number is from 0. Okay, so if we look at these examples right here, we have 8 plus a -10 equals a -2. So if we look at the absolute value, we can say the absolute value of 8 is equal to 8. The absolute value of -10 is 10. Okay, so if we look at the definition, subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value. Okay, so that means we would subtract 8 from 10, and then use the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. So -10 is the integer with the greater absolute value. So we would want to use that sign. Okay, so our answer would be -2. Okay, so hopefully that one makes sense. Let's look at another example here. The absolute value of -13 is 13. The absolute value of 17 is 17. Okay, and then we want to use the sign of the greater absolute value. So that would be a positive 17. Okay, so when we combine them, we end up with a positive 4. Okay, and another way you could do this, like I did at the beginning, is you can use negatives and positives to check your answer, or you could also use a number line. Go ahead and pause and make sure you have this example down in your math notebook. Okay, so there's two different ways I showed you there. We got absolute value. We can use the absolute value, or we can use positive and negative representation. Okay, so here's one that I'm just going to do as an example for you. You do not need to write this one down. This is just an example. So it says find -2 plus a -4. Use a number line to check your answer. Okay, so for me, I like to think of it as we're combining these numbers. So we have 2 negative soldiers here, and then we got 4 negative soldiers here. Okay, and if we combine them all together, we have -6 soldiers. All right, let's see what that looks like on a number line. That's a crooked number line, but it'll work for today. All right, so if we say 0 is right here, we go 1, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. So -7, -6. Okay, so we're going to start at -2, which is right here. Let's use a different color here. -2. Okay, and then we're going to add -4 to that -2. Okay, so if we're adding a negative, we're going to move to the left. So on our number line, we're going to add 4 negatives, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we end up at negative 6. Okay, so there's 2 ways that you can find your answer right there. Whichever way makes more sense to you is okay. As long as you're getting the right answer, then we're all good. All right, now it's your turn. Go ahead and pause here. Try these 3 questions out, and then come back and let's see how you did. All right, a positive 7 plus a positive 13. Okay, so we can, we're just combining them together. So 7 plus 13 is 20. Okay, negative 8 plus a negative 5. Okay, so if we think of, we can use the absolute value situation for here. Absolute value of negative 8 is 8. The absolute value of negative 5 is a positive 5. Okay, and now, which number has the higher absolute value? We're going to use that sign. Well, in this situation, they both have negatives, but the 8 is the higher absolute value. If we combine these numbers, we get 13, and then we use that sign there, negative 13. And again, you could check this on a number line, or you can use the positive and negative soldiers that I used earlier. Okay, last one here, negative 20 plus a negative 15. Okay, so same situation here. We can use absolute value. So let's say the absolute value of negative 20 is 20. The absolute value of negative 15 is positive 15. Okay, so if we combine those, that'll give us 35. And the sign that we're using is negative. Okay, so negative 20 plus negative 15 is negative 35. Okay, you could also use a number line, and if you start at negative 20 and you add 15 negatives, you're moving to the left 15 spaces, which will get you to 35. All right. Last one here, additive inverse. Okay, so this is a definition that you need to write down in your notebook. Additive inverse is the sum of an integer and its opposite equals 0. So this should be the sum of so it's the sum of an integer and its opposite equals 0. Okay, so 6 plus a negative 6 equals 0. Okay, and we can quickly do this by doing the positive and negative. So 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we got 6 negatives. Okay, so cancel out, cancel out, cancel. We're left with 0. Okay. Negative 25 plus 25. Okay, so if you have negative 25 and you're starting at the number, if you're using a number line and you start at negative 25, and you add a positive 25, then that means you're going to go to the right 25 times, and you will end up at 0. Okay, so additive inverse is basically just the opposites. 6 plus a negative 6 is 0, or negative 6 plus 6 is 0. Okay, so additive inverse is just the opposite. Adding 2 numbers to equal 0. All right, thank you for watching. Now you can head to Big Ideas and practice your homework.